revisions. And that complies with a municipality, MPC. We send the documents to the planning agencies at least 30 days prior to the hearing, so we beat that by a day. The Planning Commission of Lower Island Township reviewed these documents at its regular meeting November 16, 2021. They had input from township and county planning staff. They voted unanimously to recommend enactment with the redlined documents for the ordinance and the design manual. Those minutes are not yet publicly available. I assume they will be approved at the Planning Commission meeting next week. I have a township exhibit, which is Township 1. There are 4 documents in it. First is my memo to the commissioners dated November 4, 2021, outlining what we were going to discuss at the meeting on the 8th of November. I will note that when I print it in SharePoint, it changes the date to today's date. So I made a red line note, and I'm testifying that document truly is a November 4 document from 2021, but today's date appears on what I printed out for the record. Secondly, and that is 2 pages. The second part of the exhibit is an order confirmation from the PA Media Group for the publication of the 2 hearing notices, which were on the, where are those dates? The 23rd and 30th of November, which complies with the MPC requirement that we publish a notice not more than 30 days and not less than 7 days before the hearing. In addition, we put the notice on our website and on the message board out at the main entrance to the property here. So the next part of the exhibit is the Red Line Ordinance 2021-05. So all the red lines are changes that we made in accordance with board instructions. That's 21 pages. And finally, there's a red line small WCF design manual that contains the substantive changes directed by the board on October 25. That consists of 7 pages. And again, when I printed it out, I apparently printed a version that has a word missing on page 6. At item 2 at the top, new poles, line 1, subsection A should say no. The word no is missing. So I'll read what that says. And that was Commissioner Shin's catch on November 8 at the commissioners meeting. So I know there's a public record of it. It should say the maximum height of any new utility pole shall be no taller than 50 feet above ground level, including small WCF. So the word no was missing on the document I printed. I made a note of it. It's in the, will be in the transcribed record. So the substantive changes, again, they were in the form of red lines on the original documents. They were authorized by the board on the 25th of October. Number 1 is to ensure consistency between the design manual and the ordinance. Number 2 is to assure consistency between these 2 documents and Act 50 of 2021. Thirdly, to correct discrepancies in the ordinal preference expressed by the board for citing WCF. The least preferable is towers. The most preferable is small WCF, so that means that the non-tower are in the middle. So we had some order of preference glitches that we corrected. The next one is that in the original text in the design manual, the board indicated they wanted to require some retain aesthetic requirements, such as comparable materials and colors for these facilities, but they did not want to retain the original text that mandated stealth technology that didn't come along with or be accompanied by specific, clear, objective criteria, so staff could avoid being arbitrary or misapplying the stealth requirements. Finally, we provided some procedural clarification regarding building and zoning permit requirements when we get an application to an existing WCF and they're proposing no substantial changes. That's it. Our staff recommendation is to, in the public meeting that follows, that the board would authorize the solicitor to prepare an affirmative adjudication for ordinance or for the zoning amendment 2021-01. And then at a later date, when they have the adjudication in final form, to enact the ordinance 2021-05. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Eby.
You're welcome.
At this point in our hearing, this is the time for public comment regarding this public hearing. Therefore, if you're here to make comment or perhaps if you have questions for staff, now's the time to come up to the podium and make your comment, and we'll just take one at a time if you're here for the public hearing. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to commissioners' questions and comments. This is the time where commissioners can ask questions and make comments to staff.
Mr. President, if you will.
Commissioner Shin.
Mr. Eby, thank you for giving me billing on that change. But as I look on page 6, it appears that it still doesn't have the word no.
Correct. I printed a document that did not have the
Okay.
word no, and when I was prepping about 525 today, I realized that, so I made the correction. Didn't want to hand it to the reporter and on my copy. So somewhere out there in one of our cyberspace files is the correct
Yes, they're
version.
correct. Okay, I'm good then. Thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Eby, thank you.
Mr. Eby, I have a question and with regards to perhaps some of our neighboring municipalities or some others that you might know of in the area, perhaps in the COG. This has been a couple years, you know, with the regulation that came down and then the new law. My question is, does this seem to be kind of in line basically with what other municipalities are doing at this time, particularly some of the first-class townships around the area?
I cannot answer that question without research.
Okay.
If they're following the Cohen Law Group model through the COG, yes. I know Cumberland County has guidelines for small WCF and new technology regulations. So some municipalities might opt for that. It's a little less detailed than
Right.
what we have.
Got it. Thank you. That's the only question I have. Are there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll move to close this hearing. Thank you. We'll take just about a minute or two here, and we will convene our regular public meeting in just a minute or two. Thank you. Here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Following our public hearing this evening, we're going to hold our Lower Allen Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting of the board, our December 13th, 2021 meeting. Proof of publication is available for this meeting as well. We begin our meeting with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. We pray this day to give thanks for all the many blessings bestowed upon our township. Watch over us who are entrusted with the administration of this township. Create in us the earnest desire to serve faithfully and permit us to experience the joys of noble service completed for our residents. Encourage cooperation from those who are served and from those who serve. Help us to use every willing service and every effort put forth for good government. Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance to help us as commissioners to make the right decisions. We ask that you aid our staff as they perform the daily tasks of running our township, and we request that you be by our first responders as they protect our residents and see that they return home safe at the end of each day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for joining us both here in person. I'm sure we have several people joining us via the YouTube live stream. I'll just make one point. You'll see some screens up here. You now see a screen behind us here, and what was a several piece, I guess, mural that had the Lower Allen Township logo on it is no longer there. And I believe in the future, you'll be able to start seeing some of our meetings streamed up back here so the general public can just look this way instead of having to look sideways at these screens. These have been recently installed, so we're a little ahead of schedule, but we're working out some kinks. Tonight? Okay, so the rear board here, you'll be able to see up on it. And the hope is that the folks that want to tune into this meeting from home will be able to do so in the future by just seeing a lot of what gets put up onto the screen, and probably including our agenda and many of the items that we discussed right on your own screen at home. All this is an effort that we've been working on for quite some time to make it easier for you to see what's going on with your local government. So we're real proud of our staff for making all this happen, and we just still ask for your patience as we work out some of the kinks. So thank you. Commissioners, in our packets this week, we received the meeting minutes, a draft of those minutes from the November 22nd meeting, our regular meeting, and if there are, or if there are no more comments or questions about those minutes or any corrections, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 22nd.
Mr. President, I would like to move that we approve the meeting minutes of our regular meeting of November 22, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Shin. I have a second from Commissioner Kutz. Is there any questions or further comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. And let the record show that Commissioner Holtzman's not with us this evening with excuse. Thank you. At this point on our agenda, this is where anyone that is joining us here this evening can talk about any item on our agenda. And when we get to that agenda item, we would ask that you come up to the podium. We would like to know now if there's any item on our agenda this evening that you're here to discuss. Okay, yep. Well, no problem. When we get there, we'll have you come up. Absolutely. Same. Yes, sir. Number 8B. Got it. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. When we get to those items, we'll have you come up. Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda. Any commissioner, staff member, or anyone else in attendance who would like to have an item on the consent agenda removed for further discussion can request so now. Is there a request to have any item on the consent agenda removed? Seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda this evening, which include 3 items. Our check register, December 3rd, 2022 employee pay rates, and C would be waive employee health insurance premium copays through June of 2022.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion from Commissioner Black and a second from Commissioner Shin to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Under your president this evening, I'd be looking to accept the motion to approve solicitor preparation of an adjudication in ordinance 2021-05, amendments to section 220-206 and 220-207 wireless communication facilities of the codified ordinances of Lower Allen Township.
So moved. We're going to die for lack of a second. No, we're motioning.
We're motioning,
to
the
prep-
motion is just to approve,
Yeah.
to have the,
Yeah.
Second.
thank you. The motion is to approve, have the solicitor prepare the adjudication in the affirmative.
Not in the motion, you're saying prepared in the affirmative.
That's what I was hoping, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that clarified?
It does.
Okay,
It is.
thank you. So I have a motion from Commissioner Shin and a second from Commissioner Kutz. Is there any questions or further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd be looking to accept a motion to enact ordinance 2021-06, 2022 general fund and other fund budgets.
So moved.
Second.
So, Ms. Secretary, if you'll please take a roll call. Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd be looking to accept the motion to enact ordinance 2021-07, the manager's 2022 salary ordinance.
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry.
We don't need a second. Thank you. Commissioner Shin made the motion, and Ms. Secretary, will you please take a roll call? Aye.
President Black,
Aye.
Mr. Shin,
Aye.
Mr. Kutz.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd be looking to accept the motion to move Bryce Thompson, a stormwater inspector in the Public Works Department, from probationary status to full-time status effective December 14th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Shin. I got a second from Commissioner Kutz. Are there any questions or further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Beg your pardon, Commissioner Kutz, I jumped you a little bit on that one. At this point on our agenda is any business pertinent to the township. We do limit our discussions to 15 minutes per person, and there were a couple of different folks who wanted to come up and talk this evening, I think, about different things. So I'll start with Ms. Tarquino.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Tarquino. I am a township resident, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of my residency within the township. First and foremost, I'm going to commend the township and all their efforts. I know how much hard work, energy, and effort it is to create plans, comprehensive plans, municipal plans, and all the work it is working with and for all the residents, internal and external partners that you have. So I'm going to bring up a little bit of a timeline because I have some questions about the timeline and how important it is. I know that, John, you spoke about the MPC and all the rules and regulations tied to the MPC. And I'm going to emphasize on safety. And I don't know if anybody has any questions in regards to safety and some questions that you have a little bit later to that. So in 2018, the township adopted a comprehensive plan, and in and around the comprehensive plan, it emphasized on safety. So all elements of safety, and in the MPC would address safety. So internal and external users. So anybody that's traveling through the municipality, there's core elements of safety that was emphasized in that comprehensive plan, and that plan was adopted in 2018. So subsequent to that was the bicycle and pedestrian plan that I also participated in. So that was after that comprehensive plan. So I'm going to go that now before that. So before that, the township worked in conjunction with the West Shore School District in the development of their land use plan for one of the schools, the Ross Moyne Elementary School. So when they were talking and emphasizing safety, what safety elements could they incorporate into their land use development plan? So as I was shuffling through all those papers, the land use development plan, the Lower Allen Township's comprehensive plan, and the bicycle and pedestrian plan, every core element of safety that was included sidewalks and bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. So in the plan for the school, it was the township's decision then in conjunction with the school district to remove the sidewalks. So I guess my question for the township and the board here today is why? Why was the decision made to exclude sidewalks near an elementary school that was deemed hazardous? Because the decision being made to exclude something in a municipal planning code that was deemed hazardous potentially could save somebody's life. As we all were made aware, in October 2021, somebody lost their life. Okay, we can't take that back. So I send condolences to that family member. I send condolences to anybody who may have known that individual. But my job is to increase safety. I want to make every place safe for all users, but going back and looking at the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2018, the bicycle and pedestrian plan that was adopted in 2019, pointed out a safe place for users around school districts and in walking communities that should then connect the school district to now Arcona that's being added to in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 and thereafter. So how can we do this? How can we stop excluding sidewalks, bicycle and pedestrian improvements as part of the land development plan? So again, I ask why? Why were these exceptions made and modifications made? Now, I know there were sidewalks made as part of the modification. So in July it was 2019, July 2019 and November 2019, this body made the decision to exclude and modify sidewalks as part of the land development plan for West Shore School District. So my question is why?
Well, I'm not positive I understand the question, just because I might not understand the terminology you're using. You're using the term that it was excluded. In my understanding, it was a waiver.
That's correct.
In that time. And I'll ask staff here probably to speak in general about waivers and how they go. I recall the time when I was, when the initial I want to say a tentative draft of, you're talking about the Ross Moyne School
That's correct.
itself, came through the Planning Commission. I was the liaison at that time to the Planning Commission. I remember asking the question, why would that be a part of it? And of course, as you know, the county filters and sends their information. The township engineer and our folks, work on what our zoning and ordinances would require. And then the planning commission kind of gives their nod on it. Waivers are not uncommon. Since I've been on this board and in the township for the years that I've been here, waivers are often allowed. I've asked the question, and generally speaking, the answer I have gotten is the township could require sidewalks at some time, at what point it would be appropriate, let's say, for connectivity, as you're speaking of, like with Arcona. And I think I even asked that question back then, what about Arcona? And there is no clear connection to them right now because of the turnpike or some other things, I'm not sure. I also asked the question back then of the school district representative. If I recall correctly, I asked them, why you wouldn't want sidewalks. And it's my understanding that they don't encourage walking to school in that school. And I remember somebody giving me the explanation that they would actually have a bus scheduled to go to those homes that are right across the street from the front of the school and just drive the kids over across the street, and that they really, I'm not sure if they prohibit or not the practice of walking to school in that particular school or not, but it was my understanding that they do not encourage it for sure. And so I think when it came through, the waiver was not something out of the ordinary for the board to approve after it had come through the process through the planning departments, and then of course through our planning commission and to the board. So at this point, that's my understanding, and I feel I owe you at least some explanation of how I see it from the history. But I would actually ask staff to give an explanation, if you would. Our township engineer, who was involved with that plan, is no longer with the township. But I would ask Mr. Eby at this point maybe to talk to it, if you would, please.
Okay, well, in processing that plan, there was sidewalk connectivity provided to the manor of Westport, which is behind the school. There are no sidewalks existing anywhere on Ross Moyne Road from its beginning at Lisburn Road out to Route 15. So I don't know the exact answer without going to get the file and looking at the modification note on the plan, but I suspect there was a deferral or waiver because there are no sidewalks along Ross Moyne Road for which the school could connect to. And then the secondary part is that they were discontinuing the crosswalk situation for walkers from Fair Oaks. Therefore, there are no sidewalks in Fair Oaks. So that's my recollection, and it is very typical for the board to either waive or defer sidewalks. Typically, then the developer pays into a fund so that at some point in the future, when a sidewalk project is being done to extend connectivity for pedestrians, then that fund is used for that. That is the best I could do without going to pull the file and read the waiver note.
John, if I may, why is there a crosswalk there in the first place? That seems to me to encourage pedestrian use. So if the idea is there aren't sidewalks, so we want to discourage pedestrian use, why is there a sidewalk that crosses to Ross Moyne Elementary in the first place?
Okay, the crosswalk is a legacy from the days when students walked to school and crossed the street. And in the past, we had crossing guards, I believe, at that location. So the school no longer is crossing kids. There are no sidewalks in Fair Oaks, and there are no sidewalks along parallel to Ross Moyne Road. Therefore, I think it would have been logical to waive the sidewalk requirement. Why the crosswalk is still there, I can't answer.
Yeah, so as part of the design, and I do understand the history, I dug up the decades of history. So coming here blinded, I was not. It's, again, all eyes are on safety. It's a focus area for me. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't care what age you are. I don't want anybody to be that statistic. I would like somebody to be comfortable in walking and biking and hiking and driving and getting to your destination safely. But to what you noted, why are those crosswalks there? It is still labeled as a school crossing, which is a concern. And I do understand that the township is working with the Department of Transportation to make those modifications thereafter the fact, hoping that they would have been made during the design. So during the land development phase is when they should have been proactively made. So my point in coming here and having this conversation with you today is making certain that during the land development phase, all parties are coordinated with. Because when the township, whether it's the planning commission, the board of commissioners, is granting exceptions to these waivers or modifications, you are actively aware of what these changes could mean. And in this situation, it costs somebody's life. And I want to make certain that this does not happen again, not just in Lower Allen Township, but anywhere across the Commonwealth. So that being said, I hope that somebody takes this conversation home today, and any other exception or modification that's made in the future, I certainly hope it doesn't cost somebody their lives. And you could think, could this waiver, could this modification, what safety impacts might it have in the future? So I hope that you just take that home and think about it next time. Should it have a safety or congestion mitigation impact? And does it negatively impact a development project in the future? So that's what I
Mr. President, if I may clarify something, the impression is being given that this gentleman lost his life because there were no sidewalks. The gentleman was not walking along Ross Moyne Road. He was crossing directly from Colonial over to the school property. So whether there were sidewalks there or not, it did not impact this accident one bit. He was hit in the crosswalk, not alongside the road. Just a little clarification in case anybody gets the idea that, maybe he was walking along Ross Moyne Road and there was no sidewalks. He was walking on the shoulder or on the edge of the pavement or something like that. That was not the case.
Your comments are noted.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us this evening.
Director, and Mr. President, if I may, for a moment.
Yes, Mr. Coach.
Director, as I understand you're discussing improvements to that site, would it be possible to address the crosswalk issue? I know the crosswalk's the center of the poke point of the issue and discussing an RRFB and additional signage that we might be looking for. Would it be possible just to clarify in your conversations with PennDOT or your belief whether or not the crosswalk there whether that should still be a school crossing in the first place, since West Shore's providing busing? I noted that in my commute to work every day, I see students, see their parents walking them to school, so they're still utilizing that crosswalk. But would you mind just making a note to perhaps bring that up in discussions about whether or not it should still be a school crossing, and if it is, what improvements and precautions need to be made to make sure that, I know it's broad daylight and during school hours, but just to add that extra layer of safety.
No, it's actually not a school crossing. The signs still have students on it, and they should have been changed. They should have been regular crosswalks. That's one of the things that we sent a letter to PennDOT and we requested permission to change those signs. It's a state road. Ross Moyne's a state road, so any signing changes, additions have to go to the Department of Transportation. So we're working with our traffic engineers now to get permission to do some of those things. The RFBs are one of those things we're looking at because, every intersection technically is a crosswalk by definition under the vehicle code. So if we can make that one safer, even there are no sidewalks leading up to it, I think that's a positive thing. So we're looking at all of those options, but that's going to require a permit to PennDOT to do any change like that. And we're working with our engineers to see how we go about doing that. We also have a letter into PennDOT. I requested them to take a look at reducing the speed limit on Ross Moyne Road down to 35, which would be, their determination as to what portions of that, but particularly by the school approach on either side. And the district is interested in putting up bus crossing flashers as well, because since the school crossing or the school zone those signs had to be taken down, since it's no longer a school zone. Those are the things we're looking at for modifications. So we have ongoing conversations, and we will continue those conversations.
And Director, in terms of the district's involvement, am I correct that it's no longer a school zone because they decided to bus everyone rather than have them walk? Is that what would, if there were students walking, would that be enough to create a school zone?
No, I think that was a decision. I was not involved in that discussion or decision, but I know that was a discussion with this district, and the district had decided that they would bus students. They've been doing that. I don't know for how long, but I know that's a routine, and they encourage, as was said earlier, they encourage parents to put their students on the bus.
So I guess my final area of concern is I understand they're providing busing for students from Fair Oaks. Many of them are not taking the bus. They're still walking. It's right across the street. So is there, I guess my question would be, is there a way to make that a school zone again because students are still walking to school?
I don't believe so, because again, this is prior to my involvement in this, but I understand that PennDOT declared it a hazardous roadway, and as a result of that, they had to bus students as opposed to making it a school zone. So again, I don't know the particulars. That's third-party hearsay. I've not read any documents about that, but that was discussion with the school district too. So I don't think that will happen. So we're just trying to reduce the speed limit if PennDOT will allow that, and provide for other safety things like the school bus flashing signs, and just try and reduce speed that way. We've run, interestingly enough, we have the speed radar devices. We put them up there in both directions in the stealth mode.
Right.
The 85th percentile is around 40 miles per hour, but you can go 5 miles per hour above or below for establishing speeds, and that's why we ask for the 35 speed zone. So we've not heard anything. It's at PennDOT, so we don't quite know where that is in the process.
So, Director, those devices in stealth mode were placed right around the crosswalk. Is that fair to say?
On either side of the school, approach to the
Right.
school in both directions.
So you're saying 85% of cars were going the speed limit or below?
The 85th percentile was around 40 miles per hour,
Okay.
which is the current speed limit.
Got it. So in your estimation, perhaps reducing the speed to 35, 85% of cars are going 5 miles an hour slower. Is that fair to say?
We would hope. Now, there were some peak speeds there, so that would be, in addition to that, would be an enforcement effort for those that are peak speeds.
And in terms of patrol, and maybe Captain Kern's a better person to answer this, are police routinely patrolling at Colonial and Ross Moyne around the time school gets in or out, in terms of not just to monitor speed, but is that one of the areas where our officers will sit and do work during downtime, just to kind of slow cars down?
Yeah, they've been, Leon can comment on that, but they've been advised that their presence there is desirable.
They are getting there when they can, but there is no downtime during that time. That's the morning rush. And we have multiple schools in the township, only a limited amount of staff available. So from time to time, they do get into that area. It's not going to be a consistent presence because we certainly have other schools that are in session throughout the township during that time, and then the regular call volume because of the rush hour.
Sure. So they have to basically account for the busyness of Carlisle Road for both Highland and Cedar Cliff, in
Certainly.
addition to Allen and then Ross and Trinity. And so
Gettysburg
Ross
Road
Moyne's-
at Allen Middle School, and then Trinity and Ross Moyne Road as well. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. And Director, would you mind just keeping us in the loop on your ongoing conversations and efforts there?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Michelle, do you feel compelled to answer that question? I know that you had kind of made a motion to kind of want to answer it. So if you can make it,
Just
that'd be great.
to answer and elaborate a little bit more on the question that you had asked about the history of the walking. It was to my knowledge, West Shore School District has been busing individuals, the students, to Ross Moyne for a really long time. In 2018, they had completed a study which then deemed that area hazardous. By doing so, they applied for funding, supplemental funding from the Department of Education, which then provided them additional funding to bus those students. They are not permitted to allow those students to walk. There's certain criteria elements that would prohibit those students from walking, and one of those items is the inability to provide sidewalks in that specific location. So one is sidewalks, one is the number of vehicles that are traveling on Ross Moyne Road, and the speed limit. So there's certain criteria that deems that area hazardous. So, you know, reducing the speed limit would be one, providing sidewalks, and then, you know, Arcona is not, it's the elephant in the room, is not helping because you have more ADT. You know, average daily traffic is ADT. I'm sorry for those of you that, you know, I'm sprouting off some acronyms here. We've said MPC, we've said ADT. It might not be helping because you have more individuals that continue to travel. However, if you at some point have the ability to connect by sidewalk, Arcona is a half-mile away. I understand there's a huge hurdle by having the
Turnpike
bridge
bridge, yeah.
of, you know.
Which is very narrow as it is.
Miracles happen, you know, if and when that bridge becomes wider, those individuals have the ability, we're taking roads we're taking vehicles off the road. Those individuals now, we're allowing them to walk or ride their bike instead of bus those students, so.
And I think that's an admirable long-term goal to get there. Obviously that,
We're reaching for the stars, but, you know, we have the ability to do that, right?
And I guess for the bridge, that takes Turnpike Commission support in addition to all the other.
It's not a turnpike structure.
So the bridges would PennDOT be responsible for replacing those? Well, my thought was
Longer term vision.
right. My thought was the Turnpike had their goal to expand to 3 lanes all the way through Harrisburg. That was at some point floated. So that was where I was getting at with the Turnpike getting involved, was that if and when they would decide to expand to 6 lanes across, that would be. But that's also probably a much longer term vision, because I think there's 9 bridges between Carlisle and Harrisburg that make that a difficult reality to accomplish. But Director, I guess since, and I appreciate the comments and your background and to lean on your expertise, is there a way we can encourage those families in Fair Oaks, or maybe ask the district to reach out to them and encourage them not to walk their students, if, or just to remind them that busing is provided as a safety mechanism? Because, you know, like I said, it's just watching people walk them across the street to school. If the idea is we want to avoid that, it might be good to kind of reinforce that.
I can talk to the district. I know I actually talked to one of those parents, and you know, he said he's gonna take his child and walk across that street. So, knowing full well there's busing, so there's a point at which you can suggest, you can recommend, but it really ends up becoming the parent's decision.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for, bring some light to this. And I'm sure moving down the road, as we do further redevelopment in the township and any other development there is, I'm sure the safety will be at the forefront of all these discussions, as I believe they usually are. Director Hall, will you, make it a point to, as soon as you get any material information back in your communication with any of the parties, whether it's PennDOT or school district, if you just keep the board up to date, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Becky and Aaron and I are working, and Tom are actually working on that project. We've had conversations about it. We were on the Zoom call with PennDOT. So it's progressing. They have a letter in their custody, and we're looking at what an engineer might recommend as well for the permitting, because the permitting has to be done by an engineer to do any traffic control device changes there.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to, I believe there was one more individual that would like to speak at this time regarding an issue with the township, I would assume.
Yes.
And
yes.
just state your name and if you don't mind giving your address.
Surely. My name is Tom Williams. My wife Margaret is here with me. We are 28-year residents of Ross Moyne Road, specifically 1253 Ross Moyne Road. And before I get into the topic that I wanted to discuss, I wanted to thank Mr. Quino for being here tonight. It's the first time I've heard any concerns about the speed on Ross Moyne Road. And quite frankly, regardless of whether or not that poor gentleman was on a sidewalk or not, he was killed on Ross Moyne Road. And I can tell you, as a 28-year resident on that road, we have noticed a marked, and I don't mean just a little, a marked speed increase. Now, Director, you have some data apparently, but I can tell you as a resident on that street, the speeds that people are going on that road now are just crazy, to the point where it is difficult and dangerous for me to get out of my own driveway in the morning. When I pull out of my driveway, it is clear to the Turnpike Bridge. When I make my turn and start going down the road, there is somebody right on my backside, and of course, they're giving me a middle finger salute. So I can tell you the people that live on Ross Moyne Road are enduring a very different situation now that the school on one side and the Arcona development is on the other side. We're like an island with a drive-by. My wife and I often talk about Ross Moyne Road as the Ross Moyne Speedway, and that's exactly what it is right now. And Mr. Kutz, thank you for your attention to the concerns. And I can tell you also, again, living there for 28 years, the school property is not only used by students to get there and go home. People use that on the weekends. There's a playground right facing Ross Moyne Road. If that's not an attractant, I don't know what is. But people are using those facilities as they should, as township residents. We used the old school grounds, many people did. I mean, my gosh, as residents of the township. And certainly I think that unless you're going to propose to lock up the entire property and not let anybody in, including taxpayers of this township, to use maybe some of the facilities that are there, the playground for kids, there's going to continue to be serious problems there. Enough about that. What I wanted to address, because I know I have limited time and I know the commissioners have limited time, what I wanted to discuss were a couple issues that my wife and I, again, as 28-year residents of Ross Moyne Road, have with a proposed development that will eventually make its way to the commissioners, which is called Lark Meadow. We first heard that the Lark Meadow development was being considered by various township bodies, the Planning Commission in particular, a couple of days after the Planning Commission considered it and gave it, that plan, some preliminary approval. My wife and I had a family emergency. We were unable to attend that meeting. So the first meeting we were able to attend was the Sewer Authority meeting, on which Mr. Shin also sits, and Mr. Shin was gracious enough to invite us back. We expressed our concerns about a couple of issues with this plan. Number one, if the plan is approved as it's currently on paper, it's going to deny us access to a lot that we have behind, the second part of our property is a separate lot. And my wife and I would like to consider developing that, maybe even for a home, a second home on that property. So right now, we don't have access to that. And I know you don't have the plans in front of you. I can hand out a plan when I talk about my other issue. But that's something that we'd like to have discussed with this developer, which is providing access in some form or fashion to our lot, which is a developable lot. Second, the concerns that we have to do with sewer. If the commissioners know, all the folks along Ross Moyne Road between the school and the Turnpike Bridge are on septic and private wells. All of those facilities are at least 60 years old. I don't know the condition of all of those facilities, but I know they have not been inspected. Our concern is that when we see the proposed plan, and I'll hand out some of these proposed plans so that the commissioners can see. I don't know if the township provided any copies yet. Commissioners, I know Mr. Shenry, at the sewer authority meeting, we were able to open up the large format drawings and discuss what our concerns were at the time. This proposed plan, if you can see, if you see that where it says 1253 Ross Moyne Road, it kind of juts down yellow. That's our property, which actually juts into this proposed development somewhat. But if you look at the facilities along this road that ends in a cul-de-sac, the green line indicates that's the what eventually is proposed to be dedicated to the township as a sewer facility, a public sewer facility. Now, our properties that abut that have access to that public sewer, because again, number one, in our case, we don't have access, or we won't if it's approved in its current state. We will not have access to access our current facility to make any repairs or to build a new facility on our property based on the geography and topography of the way our property sits. There's no way for us to build another driveway around or anything like that, and we will not be able to access that. I know the township has an ordinance that says if you are within 200 feet of a public sewer facility, you shall hook up to that public sewer facility. I didn't mark it off myself. It's not my property. But if it's not 200 feet or within 200 feet, it's darn close. And the other properties that you can see that are along that parallel that road, that proposed road, are also similarly situated in that they're very close. And we would submit that now is the time for the commissioners, before you give a final approval, that some discussion be had and some allowances be made, either by easement or however we can do it. And certainly, we're willing to work with the developer. Something about that in a minute. But you can see how close it is. And in fact, our neighbors, Dick and Linda, who currently own the property, you can see where it's been approved or will be, or is proposed to be approved, that there'll be a hookup from their new home to that new facility. So all we're asking for is, don't make us an island. We've had this discussion with the sewer authority, and when the sewer authority considered it, they decided to table their approval until next month so that they could do some more research and look into this issue so that there can be discussions and we can work with the developer and the township so that, again, the folks that live on Ross Moyne Road that are currently on private well and septic would have access to a public sewer. And in talking with the sewer authority, you know, there's, I don't know how many year plan they might have, where potentially a sewer would be put down in the street of Ross Moyne Road to service those. But that's many years from now, if at all. And I don't think that we want to be in a situation where we're doing planning by emergency. If one of these facilities goes bad, I don't know what's going to be done in order to make them work again. I don't even know if there's, again, I don't know all my neighbors' ground, but I don't know if they have ample room to put another facility on their property the way it is now. So we're in jeopardy of becoming an island when we have this proposed public sewer that's so close to us. It seems to make sense that now is the time to make those accommodations. And again, we're not looking here to put a kibosh on any development or anything. What we're looking for is some consideration so that, you know, the homes that of the residents that are along Ross Moyne Road can access that public sewer once it's approved. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why are you coming to us first and why didn't you talk to the developer? Well, I can tell you, attached to that one-page plan, you'll see where my wife and I reached out to the developer with the help of Dick and Linda. We reached out to that developer. We wrote to that developer in July of 2021, well before the plan that was before the Planning Commission was done, unbeknownst to us. We waited and waited and waited, heard no response from this developer. And in fact, I came in to talk with the township representatives, Aaron, and they were very generous with their time. We went over the plans, and that was the first time. That was in November, shortly before the second email you see there. And that was the first time that we saw that, you know, the plans, we could actually visualize what the impact on our property was going to be for the first time. And again, I believe Ms. Trone offered to reach out to the developer just to say, hey, we've got some residents that will be abutting your proposed preliminary plan or your plan and development. We suggest that maybe you reach out to them. If she hadn't made that call, I doubt if we ever would have been contacted by this developer. And in fact, Mr. Shin may recall this, but when we met with the sewer authority, the engineer representing the developer at the time, when we raised these issues, said, and I quote, "We're not obligated to talk to any neighbors." So we feel now is the time to have discussions with this developer so that we can all work together so that we can get some of these things resolved, because it's really now or never. Once this plan is approved, and if any or all of the facilities, either by mandate or by failure, have to be changed, we will have no ability to do that. And we'll have then no access to the public sewer. And I don't think that the sewer authority or this township wants to wait for some disaster to happen before a plan is made, when we have a plan before us that I think can be amended rather easily when everybody puts their heads together in a reasonable way. And that's what we're asking for. I'll take any questions that the commissioners may have.
Hey, Mr. President, if you will.
I will. Before we ask the gentleman questions, I've just say if staff's not prepared right now to make any comment on this, because I think you gave a really, I think a good presentation and expressed your concerns. Perhaps some of us in different capacities have a lack of knowledge of a lot of the terminology and development itself, and we do rely on staff And particularly if there's a legal issue, maybe the solicitor or even our township manager can advise. But if you're not prepared tonight to comment on this, if you're not familiar with it, if you are, give us a synopsis. Otherwise, I would think in the future, if we can have an update, kind of lay it out for us, so we can fully understand it. Having said that, I'm going to let the commissioners ask their questions now, and then we'll come back if we get some explanation. Thanks.
Mr. President, I don't have any questions. I know I'm going to lean on Solicitor Minor here, perhaps because he was at the authority meeting as well. And I am certainly in agreement with Mr. Williams. I was, maybe the word appalled is a little too heavy, but he's absolutely right. There was absolutely no interest in the Meadowlark Group working with anybody on what they're doing. They have theirs, and that's all they're concerned about. And I know that the staff has talked about it, and I'm not going to get any more involved, Mr. Williams, than except to say that I was. You probably read my body language. It was very, very unbelievably uncaring, and I don't know where the law and humanity come together. But it would be wonderful if there was some way something could be worked out.
Commissioner Kutz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Williams, thank you for your comments. I have a couple of clarifying questions about the current situation on your property, if that's okay.
Surely.
And mine pertains mostly just to get an idea of the lot configuration, everything, and also the access that you reference in your conversation, in your email conversation with Mr. McGuire. You mentioned you have a second lot. Is that already subdivided, or is that part of the 1253 Ross Moyne Road lot as a whole?
It's the same address, two separate lots.
Okay.
They were conveyed at two different times.
Okay. So, and what I'm getting, I'm just curious about, so I understand you have the sewer concern as number one, and number two, you had mentioned a concern about access to that property should you
Correct.
decide. Okay. And I appreciate the clarification.
Sure.
That's why I just wanted to ask. And I live in Arcona, so I drive Ross Monroe every day, on my way to the meeting tonight, on my way home. So, it is the access that is being discussed here, is that the little path that comes right near the Turnpike Bridge? Is that what you're referring to? It kind of goes back and behind the properties?
It does.
Okay.
It does. But to be clear, we have had access for the 28 years that we own the property. And Dick and Linda Hammond, who we purchased the property from, had access in that way. I don't know, because we haven't made application for PennDOT, a road and all that off of the state road. We don't know that that's a realistic approach to the access anymore. We'd have to, find out how many feet and all that, but I don't believe that ultimately, a PennDOT approval would probably be given at that point. So, but in any event, access was to that second lot, and now, if this plan is approved, based on the letter and response that we received, which is quite terse, we will no longer have access. And there is no other way to access our second lot once this plan gets approved.
Okay. And that's what I was getting at was the clarification. So I appreciate it. I'm not going to ask any further questions and rely on the solicitor to that extent because I understand that might present a legal issue that you might have to address separately from our capacity as a board of commissioners. So my understanding, our capacity as a board of commissioners would be to approve the final plan if it comes before us. These are questions we would answer. We would also have more information before any approval would go through. From my standpoint, this is just very helpful to have information from you that, you know, a lot of times plans come up and staff will say, planning commission approval, there's no issues with the plan.
Right.
And, you know, and that's kind of how the process goes. So I appreciate you at least raising this as a concern. And I think what I'd like to do, if it's okay, I know this isn't before us tonight, would be to kind of see if it is allow you to kind of resolve and present that information on the existing access, whether it creates an easement by necessity or something of that sort, at a later date when we have more information. But
Sure.
just because I know that might be a pending legal question you have to resolve, I don't want to comment any further. But just wanted to get those clarifying questions. So thank you very much for bringing the concern to our board's attention in addition to the sewer authority.
No. Are there any other questions?
Commissioner
Yeah,
Black?
Yes. Mr. Williams, you say you have 2 lots.
Yes.
Does the rear lot have public road frontage?
No, it does not.
How would you get access to it?
That's the entire question that we're talking about. We will know, currently, we have access through the access that Mr. Kutz was referencing. But once this plan is approved, we will then be landlocked. No more access to that lot.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
Yes, that's the issue.
Because that's an informal agreement that you have, right?
Sure, but we have access. Whether it's formal or informal, it's access.
So if you build a second home on that rear lot, you would use that informal access as access to it?
We would use whatever legal access we could obtain.
I'm not sure you have a habitable lot back there.
Well, that may be your, in all due respect, that may be your opinion. But that's not necessarily our opinion at this time. And we would prefer not to have to address that issue in another venue. What we're asking for is some communication from the developer, rather than the terse letter that we received. So maybe some arrangements could be worked out.
Okay, sir, hang on, I'll let you come up and talk in a minute, perhaps. Yep, just a moment,
Love to hear
please.
from you.
Just hang tight, everybody. Commissioner Black, are you finished with your questions at this time, or do you have
Well, I
more?
just have one more.
Okay, please.
When you
continue.
attended the sewer authority meeting, did you pose the question to the sewer authority if you won't voluntarily be allowed to get an easement to the proposed public sewer, would they condemn?
I did not ask that specific question. The sewer authority advised me that they were going to take the information and the plan that they were seeing for the first time. And they would be considering whether or not that was a reasonable and feasible option for the residents along Ross Point Road.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Shin, you look ready to
Well,
respond.
I'm looking at the solicitor here,
Well,
well, the question that was posed
Okay.
by Vice President Black, I don't think there's an appetite on the authority to do any condemnation.
I just want to make sure the record is correct. I mean, Mr. Hammond approached the sewer authority, I believe at the September meeting. There was a request to condemn across some property to a warehouse. And I don't want to speak for the authority engineer and manager, but I believe unfortunately, the sewers would be too deep, over 30 feet. So there was no effort to do that or to look for that right of way. But I remember that Mr. Hammond made that request. The sewer authority did their research. I contacted the attorney for the warehouse. It's owned by, I believe, the teacher's pension in California for some reason. But anyway, the local attorneys somewhere in eastern Pennsylvania, and we talked, but I mean, it really wasn't a matter of getting to the point of actually doing anything with acquiring right-of-way because the topography out there just did not work. The sewer's been way too deep for them to be safe. So the sewer authority took no action after that.
Okay, thank you,
Just for
Solicitor.
clarification, and the topography is important because the plan you're looking at is obviously a flat plan. But I can tell you that this proposed road is all downhill from all these properties that line ours and our neighbors' properties go downhill to that proposed road. So it's not going to require going uphill and all that. It is all downhill.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Eby to respond. You seem like you have some information
I
for
have some
us.
information that addresses Mr. Black's comments about how he's not sure that there's a buildable lot. And I know that Mr. and Mrs. Hammond are here tonight, so if I misspeak or have a factual error, I'm sure they can correct me, but they own this property at 1253 Ross Moyne Road, and in 1986, the owner of the residual property that's being developed, Dr. Frank Lopez, divided off Lot 2 and conveyed it to the Hammonds. The subdivision plan is recorded. It contains a note indicating that Lot 2 is to be conveyed to adjoiner Richard Hammond for lot addition and shall not be sold separately. And there's a tie bar, and this subdivision plan could not have been approved by the Board of Commissioners without street frontage as a separate lot. So that answers Mr. Black's question. And then I assume subsequently, the Hammonds bought the Lopez property and the Williams bought the Hammond property. But this is clearly a lot addition. It's not a separate buildable lot.
Right.
Based on this recorded plan.
Thank you, Mr. Eby. Mr. Williams, do you have anything else to add to your discussion tonight, your comments?
No, other than, as you can also see, there's public water that's going to this development. And I would have the same comments. All the folks that are on Ross Moyne Road right now are on private wells. To the extent that we could, in addition to the sewer hookup to public sewer, it would seem to make sense to me that there be some consideration given to having folks have access to a utility of water. Again, for the same reason, there's a lot of development going on around our homes. And we are the only ones in our area, and Mr. Eby could speak to how many people are on sewer and well. I don't know. I'm not a geologist. I'm just a concerned taxpayer and homeowner that with all the development that's going on, how is that going to impact either the quality or the flow of water in these wells? And again, I don't, and I know my neighbors don't want to be in a situation where one day the wells run dry or the septic goes bad. And then what do we do if we don't have access to the public water and sewer facility that's going to be approved, that's in close proximity?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just ask at this point that there's a lot of information, and I would hope that staff has been taking notes. I'm sure they have, and probably already have some insight into some of this discussion prior to tonight, I would imagine, based on what I'm hearing. So I would ask that the board just get an update, and Tom, you'll handle how that's going to happen. I would imagine what information you think each entity would have to give us some sort of.
Yes, and I would anticipate addressing those when we actually get a building plan.
Okay.
So, and again, the developer is here and would like to speak to the board.
Yep. So, sir, come up and then you just give your name and address. I'll probably just state your firm's name as well, please.
My name is Dan McGuire from Escambia Properties. I actually reside near Pittsburgh, 215 Schaefer Road in Coriopolis. And we've been doing a number of developments in Cumberland County since 2017. We work primarily with Silver Spring Township. We started talking to Mr. Hammond about this property about a year ago to subdivide it. And the first thing that came up that we had to go through was the sewer plan. Mr. Minor, I think, was in contact with our attorney to determine whether or not we could use a gravity system that's would be tying into this warehouse adjacent to the property. It wasn't that adjacent, it's pretty far away. We spent considerable time, considerable money to investigate this system to see if it could, because that was the sewer authority's preference, to use a gravity system. It would not work. So we were, the only thing that we could use was a pressurized sewer system. They're grinder pumps that then get pumped up to the adjacent neighborhood, and that gravity feeds into there. So that was the first problem that we had. We've been working with the township and also with the solicitor to make sure that this would be approved. Mr. Williams, and I can understand Mr. Williams is disappointed about this, but I don't recall Mr. Williams contacting me in June or July about the problems he has with this. So I'm at a loss for it. So this sanitary system that we have is going to be a forced system where it actually pushes the sewage up into the gravity system and then dumps it in. So if we have these forced main systems at each house, we'll have one. Dick's going to have one, and that was an agreement we had with him. But we didn't go out to every neighbor on the on Ross Moyne Road and say, we want you to tie in here. Nobody ever brought this up to us. This is the first time a couple weeks ago that I heard about Mr. Williams went to the sewer authority with our engineers and said that this was a concern of his. So this is news to me. But as the developer, we've got Mr. Williams and the other neighbors would like to tie into our system. They would have to have, first of all, if it was allowed, they'd have to have these grinder pump systems installed at considerable cost. It's not a gravity system. They have to be maintained. There has to be somebody on call to fix these things. That's part of the subdivision plan. And they want us to, just based on what I heard, we would have to snake down all these forced mains from the homes on Ross Moyne Road to tie into our system. So the new homeowners in Lark Meadow subdivision are going to have this network of lines going through their property. So, you know, I'm telling you right now, this is the first time we've heard that there was concern about the sewer system.
Mr. McGuire?
McGuire.
Does the address SEBOONE@mindspring.com ring a
That's my
bell?
business partner, but he's not here.
Okay. Well, we have an email to him, 2 emails back in July.
Okay.
All right? So my recommendation, because you can walk away from here tonight enlightened, and perhaps you might look at...
I texted him and asked him if he had been in contact. I hadn't heard anything from him.
Okay. But just so that everybody knows, I mean, he's your partner, and I'm sure if you're like a lot of partners, you're like ships passing in the night sometimes if you're busy. I get that. But there is record here about that.
Okay. So, and again, as far as for the access to the property, that was something that was brought up to us again, this is a couple of weeks ago. In July? No, that I contacted you. Okay, again, I'm telling you, I'm not aware of that. But I did take a look at when I heard about it from the township and from our engineers, I went out there and took a look at it. And, I don't think that we would actually, give up a big chunk of the property to Mr. Williams. That's we would lose a number of lots by doing that. So I don't think that's not what we were planning on doing.
Right. So I think at this point, the board's going to have to probably move on from this discussion and rely on staff, and we'll probably have our township manager kind of give us some idea of a time frame when we would start learning some more information on this, and have him pull that information together as we need it, when the township probably has.
Commissioner Valone, this plan's probably going to come forward for the board to be voted on in the next meeting. So it has already gone through the planning commission, and the planning commission did recommend it for approval. And they did have a list of conditions, or they had a list of comments on the plan. But we have researched it, and we have found that the Williams's lot is actually one lot, as John noted from the plan. It cannot be sold separately. It does not have appropriate frontage to access Ross Moyne Road. So it was never going to be able to be sold separately, unfortunately, from their lot. Therefore, this development has no implication as to whether they could subdivide their lot or not. Their lot was already a substandard lot. So this development doesn't necessarily have bearing on that. As for the issues with the sewer and the water, I think it would probably be great to have things on sewer and water. But the question is it incumbent upon a developer to go to to go to other lots and say, we have to connect it? That's not necessarily incumbent upon them to do that. And when they came to the sewer authority meeting, I think the sewer authority also talked about, they have done studies in the past of possibly connecting through Ross Moyne Road. So there has been some discussions about this lot. This is this is not necessarily new information for us.
Well, and I realize that. I think we're getting into it then. I'm more interested in, does the board have any say here at all? I mean, are we actually just kind of in between a private dispute, so to speak? I mean, it sounds to me like everything has gone through the channels, but now I'm hearing that, I've heard the discussion, but now I'm hearing that everything has happened the way it's supposed to happen legally.
And again, I don't know that because it's not up for action tonight, and then like the rest of the staff, that we're getting up to speed. But I think what Ms. Trone is telling us, the facts that we do know, and Mr. Eby's comment about the subdivision, we've done considerable research, but I can't tell you tonight if Mr. McGuire, his engineer, meets the conditions of the ordinance, because it's not presented to the board yet.
Right.
All I know is, as Ms. Trone told you folks, the planning commission has granted preliminary approval, and the matter will be taken up on your agenda
On the
on December
27th. Okay.
Correct.
Mr. President, there are 44 conditions, am I right? I've tried to do the math. So is staff going to be bringing the plan with contingencies, and we're going to approve it if it's approved with contingencies, or are all these 44 items going to be taken care of?
Their engineers, I think, are working on the plan right now, so they're going to address as many comments as they can, and typically the contingencies have to do with outside agency approval, so it would have to do with, DEP approval, things of that nature would be a contingency.
So there might not be 44, but there could be contingencies, which would mean you don't start working until everything's addressed.
Correct, right. You can't have a recorded plan until everything is completed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGuire.
It sounds like we're going to be having this discussion in 2 weeks again. Thank you.
And Mr. President, if I may, perhaps, so we used the last meeting in December to kind of wrap up housekeeping items that we need to address, we keep it there for a couple of purposes, but perhaps we could, maybe staff can reach out and see if that works for everyone in light of it being just 2 days after Christmas. Just want to make sure folks aren't traveling so that we can get everyone here for it. Not to delay you, Mr. and Mrs. Hammond, just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. I don't know if the first meeting in January would be better. I'll be here December 27th. I'm sure everyone else will be as well. But I just wanted to see maybe if staff wanted to make sure that everyone was going to be in town for that before we went ahead and move forward with it.
Well, and the revised plan hasn't been submitted yet, and we would be looking at it to make sure that it was appropriate to present to the board before it would move forward. But the conversations with their engineers have been, the indication is that their plan is to submit it for the 27th. Yes.
Ma'am, would you please come to the podium? Just state your name and address, please.
Margaret Williams, 1253 Ross Moyne Road, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Just for clarification, at the Sewer Authority, they tabled the pre-approval to January 6th. So how does that work? So you're talking about coming to the township and asking for pre-approval or approval of the preliminary plan on December 27th. So if the Sewer Authority is tabled to January 6th meeting, how does that work? Just for clarification.
So the Sewer Authority or the Lower Allen Township Authority is an outside agency. Therefore, we could potentially give approval, the Board of Commissioners could potentially give approval with the contingency that the Lower Allen Township Authority gave approval.
In which the plan wouldn't be recorded until that contingency along with the others were
Met.
satisfied. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay. Is it a different topic? Okay, yep. So we're gonna wrap up on that discussion, and then Ms. Lynx is here to, I think, probably talk about Sheepford Bridge, correct? No. Oh.
Sorry. Janice Lynx, 2036 Sheepford Road. I think that at your next meeting, maybe you guys are going to address the fact that Commissioner Shin won't be continuing as a Lower Allen Township Commissioner, and I'm not going to be able to attend that meeting, so I just wanted to take a minute to say some words about that.
Please.
I first met Commissioner Shin in 2015 when there was all that hullabaloo going on down at the Yellow Breeches Park, and we attended so many meetings, and it was a difficult time. But Commissioner Shin one day came down there and met me at the park, and we had a few words outside, after which he said to me, okay, let's go. We're going to go on in. I said, I'm not going in there. And he continued in, came out and gave his report, which I think he shared with you guys. And within a few weeks, the park was temporarily closed. Since that time, I'm happy to say it's been pretty much under control. So I learned that he's not only a caring man, but a brave man on that day. And then also a little bit about the bridge. Commissioner Shin has been supportive of our efforts to save the bridge since the very beginning, attending so many of our events, sending encouraging emails, listening to us on the radio. I mean, really doing all the things to be so supportive. And I think we're seeing the results of some of that support, not just from him, but the support we received from the township. It's moving in the right direction, should we say. And I just wanted to say on a personal note, I've been retired since 2016, and you see where that has gotten me. So retirement is not only an ending, it's also a new beginning, a new chapter. And I myself am, very curious to see where that will bring you with your writing, your book, and all of those things. So I wanted to offer my personal congratulations and just thank you so much for all that you've done, not just for me, for the bridge, but for the township in general. So thank you.
You're very kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate
you.
that.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have a couple items under community and economic development. And when we get to B, there's a gentleman here that is here to discuss B with us. So who's leading A?
I am. Can I borrow this?
Aaron?
On your agenda tonight is a possible action to improve an increase in improvement security for the subdivision land development plan 2017-02. This was Arcona Phase 2.1 and 2.2. It's to establish a new amount of security in $183,490 and 78 cents, and a new expiration date of December 13th, 2022. So we have an annual increase of 10% of security, and this is just asking for permission to up that amount.
Okay. Can I ask perhaps a naive question? Is 2.1 and 2.2 having to do with Chelsea, the Chelsea part of the development? It's not, okay.
Chelsea's 2.3, I think 2.1 and 2.2 would be the Strand apartments.
Okay, fair enough. My question then, I'll ask after we go through and make a move on this item one way or the other. So commissioners, they're looking for action tonight on this to approve the increase in the improvement security for the docket 21702 for Arcona Phase 2.1 and 2.2.
Mr. President, I'll be willing to make the motion as it's listed here on our agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Shin, a second from Commissioner Kutz. Any questions or further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. My question is, can anybody give us an update from the staff's perspective on the resurfacing in the Chelsea area? The last improvement security that was discussed, I believe, was about a month or so ago, and some residents had come in, and we had been talking about that. And I know that something's happened down there because it looks like it's up. Everything's been raised up. And I talked to a couple residents, and they seem satisfied. So I'm just wondering, is that complete?
They paved the alleyways.
They did the work that was kind of the folks were asking about?
They didn't do Ruthway. Yeah.
They didn't do the main road Ruthway, but they did pave the alleyways.
Okay.
And the alleyways were the concern of crumbling and things like that, so they took care of the problem.
Okay, the problem areas were taken care of, because I mean, I haven't heard from many residents down there, and we're in December, so I think that they're probably satisfied with the work. So thanks again to staff for working with them to get that completed. Thanks. All right, and B? Isn't that nice?
It's not critical. If we can't, that's okay. Those will be pretty.
I want to reach up to that screen and go like this. Yeah, I
Is it
think
possible to put it on full screen?
you should be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, if that's legible for everyone, probably the northern lot.
I don't think so.
If you could scroll up just slightly. Yeah. Look at that. All right. Oh. I was just gonna. Okay, sure. Hello, my name is Charlie Scanzello with BL Companies. We're the surveyor of record and the plan preparers. I have before you the final minor subdivision plan for Club 025 Harrisburg Gas Station. The project site is located at 3809 Hartsdale Drive. Tonight we're seeking your approval for the subdivision plan. Just a little bit about the proposed lot. It is currently one lot at 4.59 acres to be subdivided into two. The proposed lot 1 is 1.66 acres. It is the northern lot that we're looking at now. Currently, the BJ's Wholesale Club gas canopy is on that portion of the lot. The second lot is the residual lot. There we are at 2.93 acres, and that's the current YCH Properties lot. And other than that, there's not too much more. This is purely a subdivision. There are no improvements or developments as part of this lot. We have received comments from the township and the county, and we have provided a comment response letter December 9th, so very recently, addressing those comments. At this time, if the staff or commissioners have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioners?
So the current setup there with the pumps and so on and the all the amenities are not being disturbed. You're just
That is
separating the lots. Okay.
correct. It's currently all on one lot, and the BJ's gas canopy is part of a lease agreement for that lot, and we're looking to subdivide between the two. But there are no other changes to the existing amenities and no improvements or other amenities proposed.
I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Well, just to clarify, it's a no-build subdivision plan, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The planning commission recommended approval for this at their November meeting. Some of the main comments that we had really had to do with indicating where the utilities were and the utility easements for this plan. And they have come back and noted where all of the utilities are going to be and have kind of satisfied all of our comments.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you are so inclined, if anyone would like to make a motion to move this tonight, I'm seeing nothing that would hold it up at this point.
Mr. President, based on the letter we have from Ms. Trone dated December 9, excuse me, it's not from Ms. Trone, it's from BL Companies. I apologize. I'm not putting words in your mouth, Aaron. I'm willing to make the motion that we approve subdivision land development plan 2021-09, the property at 3809 Hartsdale Drive, BJ's Club 025 Harrisburg Gas Station, final minor subdivision plan.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Shin. I have a second from Commissioner Black. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to the Township Manager. Looks like you have 2 items.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The first item I have on there is Resolution 2021 R40, which would be our fee schedule for 2022. The draft was sent out to you with the changes in red for your inspection, and staff's prepared to discuss any of these changes or increases that's in there if you so desire.
Mr. President, I just have a couple of questions, if I might.
Commissioner?
I'm looking at page 18, and it's just a matter of my having never noticed this before. under billable services, moving down to two things, flood lighting, $100 per hour, first hour included in first $250 fee. I'm missing the pickup on that. I'm not sure I understand what that. what
This is for the fire billable
For Lisburn
services.
Fire Department. I'm not sure that terminology.
Your question is flood lighting is listed at $100 per hour,
Yeah.
but the first hour is included in the first $250 fee,
Which would go back to somewhere.
up above the.
I see that.
two first
I
things.
see that. Okay, great. Then the other thing I had to do with oil dry. $25 per bag, first two bags in, okay, so that goes back to the $250 fee up
Yes.
top as well. All right, that does it for me. No, it doesn't either. Under emergency standby services, first and hour, HOUR. What is that? What does that mean?
That's a good question.
I don't know, is it a
it's been-
misprint?
it's
Or
been
is
like
it the
that
first
since-
hour would be
First-
charged at one rate?
You're looking at me, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
This
have
has
it in
been-
front of me.
This was
So-
created by the fire company years ago. It's been like this since we
Okay,
started charging.
like I said, it's one of those things that my eyes didn't land on it the other 30 years I've been here.
I'm wondering if I'll find out.
It's not gonna
But
hold
I'm
up
not
my
sure that
decision.
that ampersand is just not just a straight mark, because first hour will be $400, each additional hour, 200.
Okay, so that could be
So
a typo.
I'll get that clarified.
That's fine. It's not, again, it's.
Yeah, that's how, I don't know the numbers, but that's how it's usually billed. There's a
Okay.
first hour and then there's subsequent hours after that.
It's not a deal breaker for me. I just didn't understand.
What number is,
Excuse me?
wouldn't be 7, would be for 7 hours, but I just
Okay.
wondered if somebody did a shift, that's supposed to say first 7 hours.
And then the next
Okay.
column is each
I'll get that
additional hour.
clarified.
So that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm good, Mr. President.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Keeping with some good housekeeping, I'm sure the manager would like to get this done tonight if we can.
Make a motion,
Definitely before the
make a
end of the
motion, we pass resolution 2021-R-40, the 2022 fee schedule. It's my night to be left standing.
Okay, are we,
Over the
Well,
years, I've actually
I have-
had motions not seconded.
I
and
have a
they just
motion from
die.
Commissioner Shin.
Is this a hazing? Is that what this is?
Okay, at this point, I'm not seeing a second coming forward.
Well, Rick, how do you want to handle the change that Tom's going to?
Well, we can make the motion subject to adjustments by the, I mean, that's fine. If we don't, I'm not concerned about my typos, if that's what we're concerned. I'm not concerned about those are typos. I get it. So
yeah, it's not a dollar change.
just a vocabulary issue. It's just a typo issue. I withdraw my motion.
Okay, Commissioner Shin's motion's been withdrawn. At this point, I do not have a motion to approve the resolution 2021-R-40.
Okay.
So,
Are we looking for the answer to this specific question? Can I bring this up again on the 27th, or are we just not going to have fees next year?
well, no, that,
Sorry. I didn't
you
mean
are
to do
being
that.
sarcastic.
Yes.
So.
No, I meant
I
not.
would,
I
I
meant
would ask
incre-
you, I would beg
increases.
you to make sure this gets clarified and we bring it up again on the 27th.
Just
please.
don't expect me to bring it to the fore.
Not on your last.
Not going to happen.
So commissioners, if you will communicate to the manager what your concerns are between now and the next meeting, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I apologize. I was just taken aback that we didn't, prove that, like, it is a housekeeping item, so.
So moving on, Tom, you have another item regarding Senate Bill 775.
Yes, and this is, I need to get the board's feeling on this, that it's So Bill 775 is a workers' compensation bill for what they're calling post-traumatic stress injury, not disorder, but it's injury. This would be again, a mental health stress injury claim from police on against workers' comp. Right now, these kind of claims are generally not approved for many reasons. Mostly because, number one, they're hard to diagnose. Number two, they're difficult to treat in a short term. This bill that's been introduced, 775, would it would require insurance, the workers' comp carriers to accept workers' post-PTSI claims. Doesn't mean they have to approve them, but they do have to, it makes it more difficult for them to reject them. Right now, they kind of reject them out of hand, unless an appeal is filed, and then they'll listen to the appeal. So the question really for us is, do we, and the letter that I drafted there, and this came from the Municipal League, so they're opposing this, as is the Township Supervisors Association and the boroughs, because of the additional unfunded mandate. It's expected that this kind of coverage will dramatically increase our premiums, because again, with the difficulty in treating these kind of traumatic injuries, mental injuries, could go on for quite some time and rack up quite a lot of money. So again, the municipal associations are suggesting that we oppose it. This is a draft letter to Senator Regan. I don't know whether the board would support this or just stand by and just kind of be neutral on it.
The only comment I have on is we need to replace the word borough on the
Yes.
back side.
Yeah, probably.
I just think it's kind of falls into that category. The guy who asked the other guy, "Did you beat your wife last night?" And if he says no, just means he didn't beat him last night. Beat her last night, but he does beat her. We can't. We're going to look bad, I guess, if we don't seem to have a concern for our first responders, which anybody who's sitting in this room who knows us well knows that's baloney. We do care. But again, this is something that the grandiose state government just turns the bucket upside down and let it all fall on us, and we're just supposed to figure it out somehow. So I think personally that the letter to Senator Regan is a good start for them to perhaps think twice about how, and I appreciated, Tom, your some suggestions. This is not just a we don't like it letter. There are other states who are handling the same issue, and they have some alternatives, and I applaud that letter, and I think that it's a good letter, and I would like to endorse it.
So we're looking just for a consensus to have the manager send this letter.
Was this bill introduced by Senator Regan?
No, it was not. He's our senator, so that's who they suggested we write to.
So I guess I'll just,
Well, I would make the motion that we send the letter to Senator Regan.
Second.
okay. So we'll go with a motion from Commissioner Black, a second from Commissioner Shin, to have the township manager send the letter from the township manager, correct, Tom?
That's correct.
Okay, so the letter will be.
Well, I can put by whoever signature line you prefer.
But you have it drafted by the manager.
Yes.
So we're just giving the manager authority to send the letter that he's drafted, which is the draft letter, similar to, if not exactly like the letter that the boroughs and the townships of the second class have also been supporting. So I have a motion by Commissioner Black and a second by Commissioner Shin to take that action, to have the manager send the letter that's been drafted. Any questions or comments?
Call for the question.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
And we'll make sure make that change on the last page from borough to township.
Thank you. Okay, we're going into commissioner reports. We do not have on our agenda an executive session for this evening. So after commissioner reports, we will just adjourn the meeting. I'll start with Rebecca, John, Rick, secretary. Nothing tonight. Renee, you're doing a good job. Thank you. Tom,
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Aaron, Dave.
Just a couple of things, Mr. President. November the 29th and 30th was our formal CALIA on-site. It went extremely well, and thanks for everybody who was here that evening for the public comment. I'll let Captain Crone talk about it when it's his turn to speak. I want to commend him. It was humbling, actually, for me to listen to the two assessors in the exit interview say the kind things that they said, and I'm sure a lot of that will be included in their final report when we get it. So it worked out very well. Len did a great job. Julie did a great job, but I'll let him formally comment on it when it's his turn. Walmart stores, we received a grant from them for $1,000 community grant. So it's one of the things that command staff has been doing, and Diana has been right on monitoring wherever we might put in for a grant. So we've received a couple, and there's another grant award that was given that I'll also let the captain speak to when it's his turn. We signed an agreement with Jeff Fitzgerald. He runs a multimedia company out of Virginia. He's the one that did the media presentation and the film for the live-in program that you may have seen. So the fire department is contracted with him for volunteer recruitment. So it will be a supplement to, and it will integrate with the COG grant that's out there. So I think it's a great, there's certain things the COG will do, and there's certain things that they will not. So this will supplement the things that they will not. So I think it was a really good venture moving forward. Then the final thing is the captain and I had a meeting with Dr. Stoltz. So I know that Commissioner Kutz has been interested in the SRO issue. That conversation is ongoing. We had one meeting with us, Fairview Township's chief, New Cumberland's chief, and we have another one planned for after the first of the year. So there's some good discussion and some interest moving forward in a solution. We're just discussing what those solutions are, but I think there's some positive movement forward. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. So I have nothing else unless you have questions.
Thank you. Steve? So we have two of our captains here this evening. Captain Deven, anything tonight? Okay.
Two things the director alluded to was we received a $1,999 grant from the American Trauma Foundation. We're going to be initiating a fall prevention program. In your packets every month, you get the list of injuries for Lower Island Township, and that is the leading cause of injury in the township, especially among our elderly. We're going to be initiating a fall prevention program based on that grant starting in January of 2022 to reduce that. We'll have a report from that by probably July or August. We also received a $1,000 Walmart grant to help offset that and some other expenses going into 2022. Okay.
Thank you for the update. Captain Crone, talk to us about CALIA.
So on the CALIA side of things, the assessment, as the director said, went really well. Everybody that we put in front of them on the other side of the Zoom camera represented the department and the township extremely well. We had seasoned personnel and we had some of the newer personnel. Everybody lived up to expectations and exceeded them. Like the director, I was humbled by the comments that the assessors gave us. Was glowing. I can't wait to read the report. We'll see what that has to say. The other piece is the grant that the director alluded to. As you may or may not know, we have an automated license plate reader system in our commercial area. And that feeds into, we host the server for that, and we have 5 other departments that actually feed information into that as well, and also extract information. We were able to apply for and receive an up to $60,000 grant to upgrade that system. So we'll end up with a new server with enhanced capabilities, and we will also add 2 license plate readers to the area of the commercial district. And I think I've said before that, but the tool has been a force multiplier for us in terms of detecting and deterring crime. We have caught everything from murder suspects to stolen vehicles from out of the area passing through, to the simple things like registrations and solving our own shoplifting issues and fraud issues in our commercial district. So this is going to be a great boon to us and to the region when the other departments are able to get the upgrade to the server as well.
Thank you for your work.
If I thought the captain was going to mention this, but I will. The lead assessor said something that took us both aside, and that was that I judge departments that I do assessments on by 2 criteria. The first is, would I want to live in that community? And the second is, would I want to work for that police department? And she said yes to both of those for your agency. So I think that's a testament to the process. That's a testament to everybody that participated, and a testament to this community as well.
Super. Great news. Commissioner Kutz?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was pleased to vote tonight to support the operating budget for 2022 this year, again, without a tax increase for our residents. This budget represents sound fiscal policy that places priorities on exceptional service levels and funding our public safety to points that allow us to be a community that has safe roads and safe schools. Mr. President, we have prioritized several things. We've taken a step towards investment in renewable energy. We've invested in our parks and in preserving our green space. And we've invested in items to support our public safety departments, such as license plate readers and body cams for police. Mr. President, I'm extremely proud of the diligent work from our staff in putting this budget together, and in the board for supporting this and working through it so quickly. I'd like to thank my colleagues for their support and their hard work to ensure yet another successful year, another successful budget, and look forward to seeing what 2022 brings for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Shin?
I want to again thank Mrs. Links for those kind words. It's been a real ride. So I have nothing really to say, so I'm just going to be quiet. How's that for a first?
Commissioner Black?
I have nothing further to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'll start where Commissioner Kutz left off on the budget. I just want to say how grateful I am that staff has put the hard work they've been putting into the budget for the last 2 years. Since I've been the president of this board, I won't say it's been easy, but for the last 2 budgets that I've been the president, I'll tell you, I know the hard work that goes into bringing that budget together. And I'll say thank you to everybody that has been welcoming to our policies that we put forth a couple of years ago that makes the budgeting easier. I don't like to use the word bumpers for some reason when I talk about that with our constituents and residents. They like it when I say we've put some bumpers on things. But the bumpers, thank you for working within those bumpers and providing the outstanding services that we get for our tax dollars within our means. And that's just something great that we can say as a body. And thank you for all your hard work on the budgeting. And I'm proud of the budgets, this budget particularly. So thank you. I would also like to ask Director Hall, we'll let you talk some more. Please explain to everybody in just a second what PPVAR is. You know, in Lower Allen Township, for those of you here tonight or watching online, we have such a professional staff, and if you get more involved in the township activities, you'll see that for yourself. And many of our professionals here are at the very highest levels in their field, and often our executives are on boards of agencies and things of the like outside of Lower Allen Township, but that contribute to the field that they're in. And our most recent one is Dave has been added to the board of directors for the PPVAR, and we got a note on that a couple weeks ago. And I'd like you to just explain what that is, Dave, because that's our newest asset, I'll say we'll have.
Yeah, I actually saw an advertisement a number of years ago in the FBI National Academy Bulletin. They were this board, PBVAR, which is the Partnership for Priority Verified Alarm Response. That's the acronym for it. And they were looking at ways that they could bring public safety on board with the alarm industry in order to find ways to increase the use of verified alarms and reduce false alarms. And as we all know, in whether it's fire or whether it's police or EMS, on the public safety side, 90+%, coming up in some cases 97% of alarms are actually false in that they are not actual. So there's a lot of resources that are deployed a lot of the time. So this organization took it at heart. I was one of the public safety professionals brought on board, and then they brought a number of others on board, and they're expanding that. And interestingly enough, they've decided that they wanted to alternate between alarm industry board president and public safety board presidents. So earlier this month, I was put on as the president of the board of directors for the organization. So we're working on a national ANSI standard called AVS-01 that will create a standard for the alarm industry to follow at central stations and how they dispatch alarms to ECCs, to PSAPs. So it's a really worthwhile, and the members are passionate, and it's just fabulous to be able to work with them and try to make, as some of the alarm site has said, when AVS-01 comes into play, it will be a paradigm shift in what we do and how we handle alarms. So it's an honor to be a part of that and to be in that position. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And finally, I'll just say thank you to everybody that joined us tonight and that's keeping tabs on us online as well. I welcome as much public input and support for what we do here as possible, and appreciate all of the contributions that were made tonight and that will be made into the future.